Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. My name is Don Felker and this is Autonomous. In this show, I teach you how to start, survive, and thrive in the world of consulting and in small business so you can find financial freedom and more independence. So let's talk about hourly billing rates. When you're first starting out in consulting, one of the things that is most often asked to me is, hey Don, what should I do for my hourly billing rates? Should I just kind of take my salary divided by 2,080? We'll get to that number in a minute. But how do I figure out what the actual amount is? Now, there is an actual amount that I recommend every creative professional in the United States start at, and that's going to be at $100 an hour. Now, this is not a value that is just kind of meant for everybody. But if you are a creative professional, that's going to be someone who's in software, maybe copywriting, SEO, design, anything like that, where you're in a creative knowledge worker field, then $100 an hour rate is going to work out pretty well for you out of the gate. Now, here's the problem. A lot of people out there think, well, I'm not worth $100 an hour, or that's just way too much. There's no way I can even charge that much for consulting. But here's the thing is, yes, you can. $100 an hour is actually fairly low considering a lot of other consulting agencies charge. Now, let me tell you, there's a lot of companies out there that, let's say a Fortune 500 company who hires a big consulting firm, and those big consulting firms will have contracts for 6 months to a year or more that are charging $300 to $500 an hour. So at $100 an hour, you're actually really cheap. Now, coming from a background of full-time employment where you're used to only working, 40 hours a week, and you're making $80,000 as a software developer, maybe $90,000 or $100,000 as a software developer, or more if you're in the Silicon Valley or New York. You think, and you run the numbers on, $300 an hour, that's an insane amount of money. You run the numbers on $100 an hour, and that's an insane amount of money. So how do you actually figure it out? Well, like I said, I recommend it $100 an hour. But the problem is most people are afraid to even ask for $100 an hour. But that's usually the bare minimum I recommend. Now, there is a way to figure out what you should actually be charging, and that's known as the 2.1x method. Sounds kind of weird. There's actually a small little free PDF that you can download that's in the description down here that I've provided. So you just plug your email address in and I'll send you the free PDF. But I'm going to explain it to you right here just in case you want to know. Now, the 2.1x method is fairly easy to figure out. So let's I'm going to hop over here. I'm going to show you my screen. So here we go. So let's go ahead and assume here that you make $80,000 a year. Now, if we divide the $80,000 a year by 2,080, we're going to go ahead and get 38.46. So that means right around $39 an hour. So let's just round up and say $39 an hour. Now, you're probably wondering what 2,080 is. 2,080 is the number of hours that you work full-time in a year. If you were to work every single week, 40 hours a week, 52 weeks a year, times 40 hours a week becomes 2,080. So if you were to take your salary and say, hey, that's 80,000, that's what you make. I'm just using a round number, and I divide it by 2,008. That's your hourly rate as someone who makes $80,000 an hour. But however, that's not really the amount you make. So if you went to go charge at $39 an hour, you would lose your behind in this. A lot of people are wondering, what do you mean? Why would you lose your behind? Because for $80,000 a year at your company, you're probably getting health insurance, life insurance, dental, disability, 401k, holiday pay, vacation pay, PTO, you name it. There's a whole bunch of perks that are just included inside of your employment that are not listed in that $80,000. So usually what ends up happening is very often is your rate is usually anywhere from kind of 1.2 to 1.4 of what your actual yearly salary is. So let's say again you have your $80,000 and you times it times 1.2, you're going to see that the 1.2 rate is actually going to be $96,000, meaning that you're going to have a $96,000 take home actually That's at the low end. Now, if we take the high end at 1.4, which is probably more realistic to tell you the truth, so we say 80,000, and we times it times 1.4, or $112,000. So what this means is for your $80,000 job, you're actually getting paid $112,000. A lot of folks say, well, what do you mean? Like, how does that work? We have to understand that health insurance is not cheap in the United States. So your business that you work for, your employer, is paying part of that health insurance. So that's going to be a significant amount. If you were to charge $39 an hour and work full time, you still need to cover your health insurance. Now, if you're going to cover your own health insurance, you're easily going to find that it's going to run from a bare minimum for a single provider such as yourself, if you're single, from $400 up to someone like me who has a family, where I'm paying close to $3,000 a month for health insurance. Now, I pay for a very top-notch plan here in New Jersey, so it can range. Now, you can take a lower plan. You could get some type of HSA plans. That's a completely different video, which we'll get into, of which plans you may want to choose. But I have a plan that allows me to choose the doctors that I want, and I pay a premium for that. So you have to pay for that out of the money that you're paying for consulting. You're getting paid. Now, again, your employer is going to pay for part of that. So I'm just going to go with a 1.4 value there. So if you have 1.4, you see that it's $112,000. So if we take $112,000 and we divide it by 2,080, you're going to see that it's about $53.84. Now that's going to basically get you a bare minimum per hour, $53.84, for you to just kind of get by. But that's not the purpose inside of everything you have to cover. You also need to worry about savings. I also want to be able to grow as a business. And here's the thing about consulting. Consulting is a feast or famine industry, meaning that today you may have more clients than you know what to do with, but tomorrow you're not going to have anything. Now, you could encounter an economic downturn, such as happened in 2008, which I worked directly through, such as happening with the pandemic. A lot of people lost their jobs. Thankfully, I was able to work through this. Now, why I was able to work through that is a lot of the things that we'll talk about here on this channel, and we're not going to get into today. But what you need to be able to do is have cash on hand to weather those storms. Which that means is, if you don't have a position, you need to be able to have cash in the bank, live below your means to continue to find a job. So if I were to lose my consulting client today, my new full-time job becomes finding a new client. That's immediately Monday. I'd even start today. Monday morning would be, I don't have a client. Boom, I'm hitting the pavement. I'm out there talking to recruiters. I'm talking to my network. I'm trying to pull in new leads and new clients for new consulting. So $53.84 is not going to cover it. That's just going to be at your day-to-day rate. Because remember, as a full-time employee, sometimes you're going to go in on a Monday and maybe there's just not something to do at work, or you're waiting on somebody else, and so you're off learning something. A lot of the times you don't get paid to learn as a consultant. That's very rare. So you actually have to even consider that you're getting paid even more because you're not doing anything when you're at your regular traditional full-time job. Furthermore, if you're running a consultancy, you're running a business. And what's the purpose of running a business? Turning a profit and growing. So you need to be able to take home an additional profit. So you are considered overhead to your business. So if your business is going to be $112,000, well, maybe you need to charge more. Now you can start kind of running with these numbers and so forth, and I outline all of this in the PDF, but what it really comes down to is to find your very, very bare minimum so you can get by and survive and thrive in consulting. You need that base minimum rate, and that base minimum rate is actually going to be known what's 2.1x of what your current yearly rate is. So again, if we take 80,000 and we times that times 2.1, what we're going to find is we get $168,000. Now, if we take 168 divided by 2,080, again, that's going to be the number of hours that we're working in a year. We're going to see we get 80.76. So now, to make life easier and just for negotiation purposes, when you're talking to a client, you don't want to tell them, hey, my rate is $80.76 per hour. They're just going to look at you like, are you crazy? Like 80.76, where did you get that number? So you most likely are just going to round it down, or you're going to round it, you're going to round it up to 80, you're going to round it down to $80 an hour, or you're going to throw it to $85 an hour. Either way, I recommend going up. The higher you can go, the better. Remember, my bare minimum is $100 an hour. So Go up to 85 if you can. If you don't feel comfortable with that, you're feeling really it's giving you some anxiety, then drop it down to 80. But still, this is going to be the very bare minimum that you can use to get by and run your business. Because things I also talked about, such as your insurance, I didn't even bring up the fact that you got to buy your own computer. You need to buy your own internet. You need to make sure that you have everything you need for your client. You have to buy your own devices. You have to buy your own, if you're a mobile developer, perhaps, let's say you're a Flutter developer, you need to have iOS devices. You need to have Android devices. You need subscription software. You need software for managing your business, such as QuickBooks or FreshBooks or whatever the software is that you're using. There's a bunch of other things that you need. So this is one of the many reasons why you have to bill a lot higher than what you think. And a lot of people, unfortunately, will start off saying, hey, I'm going to bill off at $25 an hour and this is going to be great, or $50 an hour and I'm going to make a ton of money and I'm cheaper than everybody else. But that also has a negative effect as well. When you're too cheap, people begin to wonder, is this person really a professional or not? And as soon as you start getting, really below $100 an hour, a lot of companies start wondering, is this person just kind of like this freelancer person who does this on the side? Are they a realistic business? Or do they really mean business themselves? So that's something to think about here. If you're really wondering what you should be charging, that's fairly simple. It's called the 2.1x method. Again, I've written a PDF for it. It's free. You can, take a look down in the description. There's a link down there. Plug in your email, send it to you for free. And the PDF outlines the whole formula, the reasoning behind it, as we kind of just went through, so you can reference it for later. And so to recap, take your current salary, times it by 2.1, and then divide by 2,080. That's going to give you your exact hourly rate that you should be charging when you come out of the gate, at the very, very bare minimum. Again, I recommend that you go $100 an hour. Now, for example, if your salary is $200,000 a year, well, then, of course, it's going to be much more than $80 an hour. So if your salary is $300,000 a year and you happen to live in San Francisco and you would like to be an independent consultant and you realize that you run the numbers, and again, I'm just throwing the numbers out there, that you need to be charging $175 an hour, then that's what you need to be charging so you can live the same sustainable life and grow your business. Now, if this is content that you really like and it's something that you enjoy, please consider subscribing to the channel. I'm going to be talking about a lot of this stuff, how to grow your consulting business, how to find clients, how to make sure you're setting up your business properly for tax purposes, how to avoid problems with the IRS, you name it, everything like that. So please subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, all that stuff, and I'll catch you next time.